It's Mock Draft Monday, and the Chiefs are going to get their new left tackle to protect Patrick Mahomes today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. It's a new week, and that means it's a new mock draft. We're going to get deep into the woods on all the selections, and there are a lot of them for the Kansas City Chiefs today. But thanks for making us your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next one. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free on every platform. Audio, video, like, and sub here on YouTube if you would. We have a lot to go over. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. The Athletic Matrix does come out at rogueapc.com this week, so you can get all the information, some of which I'll be talking about today, and you can check out NFL 33 for further draft info as well as RGR football.
And I'm Chris Clark. Thank you for watching. I'm from Chiefs Corner, and you can, if you could go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell on YouTube, we would appreciate that. Also appreciate any reviews we get on iTunes and Spotify. A lot to talk about when we start looking at this draft. I did this on PFF, and I do want to throw this out before we get into it. A couple of the picks are a little bit off in the number. I tried to get it as close as possible. PFF has not updated their site yet for the actual draft numbers, so maybe off a pick number or two, but we have the right amount of picks, and they're really close to where they should be.
Awesome, and I appreciate you doing that. That's always tough. And folks, if you remember, we are doing a different mock scenario every week. We're alternating right now. I did one last week. This is Chris's draft to see what he can get done, and we're going to break it down for you. So let's get after it. What happened in the first round?
So here's our first round. They do have PFF did update and get the Chicago and Carolina trade in. So Carolina isn't number one. They have them taking Bryce Young. I'm not sure they go that direction, but that's how the draft started off.
I believe it's going to be a quarterback either way. So luckily that doesn't affect the Chiefs. Taking Tyree Wilson at 8, that is one of the options. I'm also concerned that they might take one of the offensive tackles. So this scenario actually works out a little bit better, in my opinion, for the Kansas City Chiefs to see what happens in the rest of this draft, because you see Paris Johnson and Skoronski, two left tackles, although I have Skoronski at guard. There are teams that will let him play tackle. They're back-to-back at 10 and 11, and then you come back, your guy JSN goes at 13. I do think that that's legit. The next tackle comes back around after Miles Murphy goes off the board at edge. Broderick at 21. This is within striking distance about some trade scenarios we'll talk about later in the week. But that's your top three tackles gone. So the question becomes, what do you do from then? And as you tick down, Dalton and Meyer go at the tight end spot. And then that leaves us here, and you were able to secure Anton Harrison. I think that's a good fit. I think we just did a breakdown on him on RGR of his film. You guys can check that out this week. But I like the way that he does his job. I do think he plays a little bit high, but he's got decent feet, and I think he's a guy that can slide into that spot. Is that the main reason you went that way, and what were your other options?
Really, I was looking to tackle the entire time. With the way Kansas City is built right now, and before free agency starts, this is really where I feel they have to go. I don't think they have much of a choice, and with Harrison sitting there at 31, I thought it was a no-brainer. They're going to have to get better at the tackle position, and that's going to have to be both at right and left tackle. Harrison is a guy I think that can step in, and he's young. He can play left tackle for the Chiefs. You may have some growing pains, but I think that that's probably going to be expected with just about any tackle that you bring in. They're not all going to be, day one starters that are going to, dominate the league. But Harrison, I think, is going to be able to grow into the position, and I think will give Mahomes a blindside protector for the foreseeable future. Well, and more importantly for me, this makes it to where you have one of the premier positions in the league be on a cheaper contract, and that is going to be huge. And Ryan's trying to continue to live, so I apologize for that. But
sorry, folks, okay, I'm a little under the weather, but I will mute when I need to. I think you're absolutely right. It is a good fit. It slides into a guy that's played left tackle. He is on the more athletic side. I do like that fit. It's interesting, though. It came down to a question of you. The top three tackles on my board right now went off the board. They are separated as the first tier. The second tier on my film rankings right now is actually Anton and Darnell Wright, literally with the same grade, down to like the 100th percentile. So For me, I would have been having to go back and forth a little bit because Darnell, I think, looked a little bit smoother in the combine drills. He plays with a little bit more power, but he also has very nice feet, and they're both super big. You've got good size on both of them. The difference being is Darnell played right at Tennessee this last year. He's played left in the past. And I'm kind of an outlier because I think he can play left in the league, but I can understand where you went. Did you consider Darnell at all, or was it Anton's there, we're going with him?
I did consider him. He was there. It was a thought of going maybe possibly Darnell right, but in my opinion, I think he's probably a right tackle with the way he's built and the way he's set up. Is it possible he can be a guy that can slide over left? Maybe, but to me, I think he's a right tackle from what I've seen so far. So I went with the left tackle because I think that's the most important position for them to get figured out, and they absolutely need to put somebody there that they can trust.
Yeah. And so what they end up with is a guy that has the athleticism that they're looking for. I'm trying to look up his arm length. I don't recall what Anton's came out at.
It's
34
just over
and an
34.
Yep.
Yeah. Just
So
over 34, which hits the requirement that you look for in tackles most of the time.
exactly. And when you look at running power, he's one of the few guys that ran a sub 5 40. So normally a 40 is not anything that I'm concerned about. I care about the 10s. He's got a solid split there at 177. It's a little bit over average. He's a little bit of especially in the distance pulls where he has to round the corner and get downfield, like we've seen especially Tooney do, but even Orlando do a few times. He's got a little bit more ramp up speed that he needs, but once he gets there, he's got good speed to get down the field. In fact, I do believe he beat Darnell. Well, I think he would have, because Darnell didn't run, now that I remember. So hey, I think in looking what the Chiefs have done most recently, this is a great fit, and I think that it's going to give them, like you said, the tackle of the future that can run their offense.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they need. They need to get younger at that position. They need to get cheaper at that position, and we're going to find out over the next couple of days, because free agency is kicking off right as you're probably going to be listening to this. There will start being some players that are going to be out there talking to teams already, but this is one of the things that Kansas City needed to address. I think they addressed it in this situation, and I'm really happy with the pick. And funny enough, this actually plays right into our friends over at Pro Football GM. If you have not checked this game out yet, I do not know why you have not. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard us talk about this mobile game app, and if you've ever thought you'd make a good GM, you've got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty. When you play Ultimate Football GM, you get to control and manage every strategic aspect of your team as you play through seasons and lead your team to glory, trying to build a historic dynasty. I really loved Pro Football GM. I actually played 25 different seasons, won the Super Bowl 2 or 3 times. I will tell you a little bit of a hint. Make sure that when you're hiring your coaches, you get the coaches that are going to fit the scheme, from head coach to offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. It all fits the same, and then you get bonuses for your players. Just a little bit of a hint there. Really thought that actually helped me pay off late in this dynasty. So really enjoyed that part of it. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of the franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms, navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want or when you want to. Locked On Chiefs listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today.
Ooh, start your dynasty. It sounds like a Chiefsism. Oh, wait, it is. Okay, so as you continue to build out the dynasty, talk to me about what happened in the second, because you made a nice selection. I was shooting. Darnell went right after that.
Yeah, Darnell did go right after that, and I really had a lot of fun with how this draft worked out. I think you will see there's Anton Harrison, we've already talked about. Second round pick was Nathaniel Dell, or Tank Dell, as a lot of people know him.
Yeah. Tank's wiry. Tank's an interesting guy that can separate. He's not like the banger. I wouldn't put him up on the outside. Do you feel like he can line up outside at times?
I don't really think so. I think he's going to be probably more of a slot guy. But I do think he gives you another guy that can be one of those guys that's going to go run around behind the line of scrimmage and do a lot of motion, and gives you I won't say a compliment necessarily, but close to a compliment to what you have at Tony in some ways.
That's very true. How does he fit in with Tony in your mind?
I think they're similar players in some ways, but I think if you're looking at what Kansas City wants to do with Tony, if they really believe he's wide receiver one, I think that's a situation where he's going to be playing a little bit more on the outside than you would expect, and this gives him the ability to not have to be the guy that's always running around behind the line of scrimmage, and maybe he can stay healthier doing that.
Yeah, maybe. And that's my concern too, is that the being on the outside more is going to be more troublesome for Tony. So for me, this is a position that I think I would not have gone Tank Dell because of the overlap with Sky, with Tony. I think both of them are going to end up in the slot a little bit more. So how do you carve that out? But his skill set is undeniable. He's got the best. I do believe he had the best 10 break in the group. Nope, Darius Davis beat him by like 3 100s. But super fast start to stem out, especially if you're talking about underneath routes. Hit the pivots, hit those easy crossers. Like, he can get separation easily. And so it gives Patrick a quick hit tool, in my opinion. Does he have the long speed to get there? I think he does that as well. It's just more of the same, in my opinion. Were you debating versus him at anybody in this pick?
Not really. With him sitting there, it was kind of one of those things where you look at it, and most of the edge guys that you would really want in that position were gone at that point. And so in this scenario, I thought, okay, I'll go take a wide receiver because I think Kansas City needs to get younger at that position, and I think they need to get more talent. And I understand what you're saying about Tony and Sky Moore, but when I look at this and I look at the evolution of what Kansas City's offense did, more receivers that can get open quicker, I think, are going to be necessary with Kansas City in the next evolution of what they're going to do on offense.
Okay, I can get behind that. So was there an edge available that you even considered, or not so much, and then we just had to move on to the third?
No, I didn't really think that there was any edges that really fit what I would be looking for at this point.
All right.
They'd gone. There was an edge run right before we ended up picking at 63.
Okay.
So all those guys that you were expecting to go, Felix and the guy that had the huge combine, whose name is always going to get past me.
Adewale.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I do believe they're projected a little bit high right now. I still think both those guys might be in play, but we'll see exactly how it goes. So hey, you help the offense. I assume this means end in free agency, but how did you address the third round?
Third round went with a defensive lineman.
Okay.
And this is one of those things where I think Kansas City has to look at really attacking the defensive line this offseason. They need to add more players around Chris Jones. They still have Mike Dana. They still have a couple of guys that they could possibly bring back, and they're probably going to have to sign at least an edge, I would think, in the free agency class at some point. Whether or not it's before or after the draft, we'll see. But I do think that they need to add to the defensive line.
Okay. I like the way that you're thinking. Moro is a guy that I like. I do think this is about the right range. PFF doesn't seem to agree, but hey, that's okay. I like what Moro does. He and Coburn have been a nice tackle tandem in Texas. And I think Coburn gets more love, but I think Moro's got the better game to go to the NFL level. When he tested out, he's one of only 4 defensive interior guys that are above the average of the last 7 years. And they do include Adewale, who we were talking about. He was explosive, the best of them. Jalen Redmond, then Lucas Van Ness, who I think went in the first round in this scenario. And Lucas does some great things in straight line direction. His agilities were great, but Moro is more of a classic interior pass rusher that can also play the run. He's a 3-down player, in my opinion. So I like that you gave somebody that could be the guy that starts next to Chris Jones continually, not just for first or second down, and then you need a dedicated pass rusher coming in, because that might be the case with Tommy Adewale. So I think you get a more complete player here. I like the range. Were you debating anyone else in this? Was there an edge that you had your eye on that you had to go back and forth on?
Yeah, there's a couple of guys, and actually, when we get to the fourth round, you'll see an edge that I was actually really toying with going with in the third round that actually ended up staying until the fourth. And I do think that Kansas City needs to be looking at edge. If the draft falls the way it did, I expect that they could be looking at a couple different positions. But in this scenario, I went with defensive line because, like I said, I think they need to get better at that interior defensive line, and this guy gives them the chance to do that at pass rush next to Chris Jones. And if he can be a 3-down player for him, I think it's a win.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into day 3 and see what fell next right after this, but got to tell you about our friends from FanDuel because it is right that time as March Madness is about to start. NBA season is full swing. You can go download right now FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because they have a great deal for new customers. It's a no-sweat first bet with up to $1,000 in bonus bets. So if your first bet doesn't win, you can get up to $1,000 in bonus bets applied to your account that you can then use to lay more action. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can do everything from money lines to the top scorers to offensive rebounds. You can put it all into a same-game parlay if you want, especially if you happen to have some Jayhawk action going because, hey, rock chalk. And then you can get the best out of your admonition there with that extra bonus bet. So the way it works, you don't want to miss out on this chance because if your first bet loses, that's when you can get up to $1,000 return in bonus bets that you can apply to your account. When you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, that's how you get the deal. It's super, super simple, and it is only there at FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn all the details that you need. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the NFL. All right, I am interested to see, after all that, at this point, you have to hope the Chiefs have secured a starting defensive end in free agency, given that we weren't able to accomplish this. And so if that does happen, this could be the scenario that goes down. So where did you get to on day 3?
And this is how my day 3 started. I was actually looking at KJ Henry and considering him in 95. To me, I thought Moro Ojomo would not be there. And I didn't think KJ Henry would be there at 123. But I felt like if you could get somebody on the interior, one of the things I talk about a lot is that interior pass rush is a little bit of a king over defensive and pass rush because it gets pressure on the quarterback immediately. Mm-hmm. And if you can get a guy that can do that next to Chris Jones, that is going to be very difficult for a defensive line to handle.
Yeah,
it does
for
an offensive line to handle. Sorry.
Yeah, it is definitely quicker to the quarterback. And I think that's partially why the Chiefs are in good shape right now because of their interior 3. You can see how having the weakness be on the edges right now does involve the time to throw. That's probably the key stat going forward. KJ Henry is more of a speed rusher than he is a power rusher. That said, he's not super speedy. He's not super bendy. He's a bit of an older prospect, but he has been a mainstay in that locker room, along with some other high-end players. And I think that's the key that I see here. On day 3, you went guys that have maybe not the most athletics, not the most dominant film, but guys that you can see have aspects you can build on in your program. I don't see him as a starting level player, so that's fine. You should have addressed that already. And in the scenario, like we talked about, you have a starting edge, but he's a guy that can come in and play rotations for you. And I think he can grow into a player that can help, much like Mike Dana. I see a similar path for him in the guy that plays with enough strength and enough know-how to get things done, but he's not elite. He can add that. And I do see a similar path for him. I like this pick. And so what did you do next?
And I think the big thing here is maybe he ends up having to be a starter in year 1. The big question that I have when we start looking at how this draft plays out is unless you're going to trade up and go get an edge, you're going to overdraft that edge. So in this scenario, I ended up going with Henry. We continue on, though, and start looking at the next round. And this is where I switched it up a little bit.
You definitely did. You did a couple of things that I have to go back to the drawing board because you grabbed some guys that I haven't done film on yet. So Zach Kuntz is one of them. But I'm intrigued by what you did here. So this is still the round 4. Is this one of the comps? No, it's not. This is the traded from the Miami pick, right?
I thought 123 was and 134 is Kansas City's, but it's one of those. Yeah.
Either way, Zach Kuntz is super intriguing, and I have not gotten any old film yet. He is from Old Dominion. He previously played at Penn State. So there's a little bit of people thinking that he's a lower end prospect, but he did transfer in order to play. Now, this dude, I mean,
His
I got
explosion, though.
that's the thing. And you got to check his size because I have to double check it right now just because I don't want to get this wrong. 6'0", 7'3".
Yep.
That is 6'7" and nearly a half. That's 3/8 at 255 pounds. Ran a sub 7 3-cone and a 412 short shuttle for easily.
Wasn't it around a 4.55 in the 40?
It was exactly a 4.55. Very good.
Yeah.
Jumped 10'11" on the broad and 40 inches. The same number Chris Conley did at roughly 35 pounds heavier. So he easily has the best explosiveness ranking in this particular class. And I do believe not only does he have the best short area quickness score in the matrix in this class, but I think in the last 3 classes, and he's a monster. He's as big as Darnell Washington. Now, in terms of how he gets about his business and does he catch as well? Is he mechanically sound? I haven't seen that yet because Old Dominion was not at the top of my watch list yet, folks. But I love the concept of what he can bring, and the athleticism is certainly there. This I think is a great chance you're taking. Like on big basketball type guys that we've seen in the past in Kansas City, this guy is actually a football type guy that same size. So I like it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I kept looking at when it came down to him was they talk about he has trouble separating at times. And I'm sitting here looking at who Kansas City has at the tight end room. And if he can learn from anybody how to separate and how to get open in the NFL, it's Travis Kelce. And with his size and his speed, he's not going to be one of those inline blocking tight ends that is going to be able to be kind of like an extra offensive lineman. But he is going to be somebody that can give you somebody that can attack downfield. With his speed, he has the ability to attack downfield at the tight end position and almost be a big wide receiver, kind of like a guy that Kansas City has as well in Jody Fortson.
Yeah, and just to be very clear, I'm giving it away a little bit, folks. You can get this at rogueapc.com when the Matrix comes out this week. But he is tight end 1 in the athletic matrix. He's above Luke Musgrave. That's significant.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it could be a very fun pick, and it gives Kansas City another weapon. And we've talked about this a little bit after the Super Bowl and over the past couple of weeks. I do think Kansas City is going to be one of those teams that maybe looks at playing a lot more in 12 personnel or 13 personnel going forward, just because of the receiving weapons that they have at that position.
Yeah. I will get back on his film here in the coming weeks, and I'll have an update for everybody. So where'd you go after that?
So after that, I had to go back to defensive line.
Okay. So
Kobe Turner.
you go Kobe Turner. What drew you to him?
Size and just I kept looking at different guys that I thought would fall into maybe could be somebody that could be a rotational guy for Kansas City if they already have a couple of defensive tackles. Obviously they already have Chris Jones, but they're going to need interior and they're going to need somebody that can get after the passer a little bit. And I think he can be one of those guys.
I like it. Now, Kobe played at Wake, and I haven't done their defensive film yet. I've seen their offensive side. I just haven't been able to get a hold of their defensive film, but I do like what you get there. He is, again, in that kind of that realm that we've been talking about a lot. In Adeware, he's listed at 290. Adeware was listed at 288. So you got to think he's right around 280. Listed at 6'3", so undersized, like 3-tech type, although I don't want to say that because I haven't watched his film yet. But the guy produces some pressure. I think he had 34 on the season this last season, and that's right in line with where Adeware was. I think he came in at 31. So that puts him up in the list, and I'll have to pull up the stats specifically for next time. But that puts him in the range of an interior pass rusher that can produce pressure. I'm all for that. So I will get back to you on this guy's film as well. But that seems like a solid pick. Day 3 is where you make those gambles that can pay off, and I think this one has a chance.
Yeah, and I continue just going through and looking at guys that I think can add, and I tried to focus on positions I think Kansas City needs help at, and you can see already 3 defensive linemen or edges in this draft so far, because I do think that is going to be a big need that Kansas City is going to have to try to attack this offseason.
I like it.
Moving on to the 6th round.
Then you get the running back support. I like that. Dwayne McBride is a guy that has a lot of positives about him. Didn't get any testing data on. So that's my number one thing is I want to see exactly how he tests out as the athlete, because when you play at UAB, you get some competition level that you can take advantage of, and he certainly has that. I do believe I've seen him make some nice breakaway runs, but I think this is more importantly, whether it's him or another player, this is a great area and a likely area for the Chiefs to go running back.
Yeah, and I was sitting here looking at the draft and going, okay, what other positions can I attack? And I do not think that Clyde is on the team this year. I think that they're going to either release him or trade him. I don't know what it's going to be. I would still like to see Jerick McKinnon come back, but Kansas City is going to need a third running back at some point, or maybe this is their number 2 guy, and they don't bring Jerick back. I still think they want to go that direction, but we'll see what ends up happening. But I just looked at this and it became too much value. According to PFF, he's the number 80 prospect. You start looking at other sites, they start thinking he's probably a third-round player. He's still sitting there in the 6th round. And if you're Kansas City, you're taking players that could potentially help you regardless of position, as long as you think that there's going to be a role for him. And I think that this is a guy that can fill a role for him.
Yeah. My only question was Kenny still on the board?
No.
Okay. So Kenny's probably a 4th-round player, and that's okay. But hey, I had to check. All right.
No,
so get
gone.
some running back help. So where you go after that? Because remember, folks, 177 is actually 178, right?
Yep.
And then they get a comp pick at 217, and then they have back-to-backs. They have the last pick of the 7th round at 249, and then they have the first compensatory pick in the 7th at 250. So back-to-backs there that they could use to move up. But right now, we're going to take them all.
Yeah, and I think 167 is actually 166 or 168 if I remember correctly.
Okay.
It's one of those picks. It's supposed to be around 167, but I think they're off one on that one. So going back in the 6th round, and this is supposed to be 217, not 216. I go back to edge.
Okay.
With Tyler Lacey.
And
to me, you're throwing mud at the wall at this point, and you're trying to see if you can find a guy that can step in and maybe become a player down the road. It doesn't necessarily have to be this year. You look at what Kansas City's done. They've missed at edge a couple of different times. Kendo hasn't turned out to be the player that they hoped that he would. Dana, I think, was a fantastic pick, and I think he's playing higher than what his draft projection would have slated him to play. But I still think that he's a good player for this team, and he may end up being the starter this year.
Could be. You never know. Now, Lacey came in at 279. So that's right in like the upper range of what Spags likes in an edge, right? 260 to 280 is what he's looking for. He's 6'4". He's got good arm length, not great at 33.25. So I think it's a possibility. When I've seen him on tape, I haven't been terribly impressed. He does have a rip that works. His arm over, I think, is pretty lackadaisical in timing. I don't see it work for him very much. Now, again, this is Oklahoma State. This is the Big 12. We're not talking about a conference that plays exacting defense. So maybe I'm overriding that. I don't think I've seen but only 2 games where he was on the field. So we'll get back to that. He's not overly explosive, but I think moving in a straight line, he's got a decent takeoff, perfectly even in what you're looking for at 175 of more of a power edge. So I think that's going to work just fine. The question is going to be, he jumped nearly 10 foot in broad, and that's the bigger thing for defensive tackles. Didn't jump the vertical along with the rest of what the class looks like. So that's normally more of an indicator of an edge guy. So is he, again, a tweener? Is he a Mike Dan type that can play outside, that can play inside? I think it's a concept that Chiefs should be going for, and so they are a little bit more Morpheus and can move all their guys around the front and get whatever matchup they feel is best for them. I think it could work.
Yeah, and that's another reason I looked at it is, can he be a guy that can move in on the interior and be an interior pass rush guy on 3rd down and maybe give you a little bit more power inside? So that's something that is potentially here in this scenario.
Okay. All right. Then we get to the interesting ones. These are the gems in the diamond stack, right?
Yeah, these are the ones that, quite honestly, when I started doing this draft, and I will say this, I still don't think Kansas City ends up making 10 picks. They have 10 picks. I don't expect they'll make 10 picks. So these are the questionable ones down here when you start getting to 7th round guys. I don't know if they'll have these picks when they come around. But I have been talking about this for a couple of years, and with Henne leaving, quarterback becomes more of an issue. Backup quarterback becomes more of an issue.
I agree. I will not
So
argue with that.
in this scenario, I go with Clayton Tune from Houston. He has had some great numbers throughout his career at Houston. We'll see whether or not he can play in the NFL, but it's a guy that I think can step in and they can learn behind Patrick Mahomes, can learn from Andy Reid, can learn from Matt Nagy, and maybe he's a guy that they can develop and maybe trade away down the road.
Yeah, possibly. He stands 6'2.5", 220. He's got decent size. 9 3/8 hands. That's fine. What's interesting, Will Levis has not tested a complete battery. I do think he'll give him a push, but everybody fell in love with how well Anthony Davis did at the combine, right? Anthony Davis is QB1 in the athletic matrix. I'll just give that away. We'll see what happens with Levis because I do think Levis can push him a little bit.
Davis or Richardson?
I'm sorry, did I say Davis? Anthony
Yeah.
Richardson is number one in the QB matrix.
Yeah.
I think Levis may push him a little bit, but we won't know until Kentucky's Pro Day. But who's QB2 in the athletic matrix right now? It is Clayton Tune. And he is a guy that can get out and buy you yards with his legs, sometimes to his detriment. He had a really, really interesting collision. I do think he scored. I want to say it was against one of the Texas schools. But I needs to, tone it back a little bit and remember that you're a quarterback. You can't really put yourself in harm's way. Reminds me of Henny against Cleveland when you just want him to get down and not get hit. That's what I find myself saying to the TV when I watch Clayton Tune. But I love the idea, and I think it's certainly worth a gamble. You can base it on some athleticism. He actually scored better than Dorian Thompson. That's really what stands out to me, and I always forget it's Thompson Robinson. That's why I just say DTR. But when you talk about that level of athleticism, I don't think anybody sees him coming, so I think it's an interesting pick. Who'd you go with the next one?
Well, really quick, the last thing on Tune is he doesn't have a great arm. So he doesn't have an arm like Mahomes, but he does have an arm that can make most of the throws. It's not going to be a guy that's going to overwhelm you with a bazooka like a Mahomes or Josh Allen type, but he does have enough to make most of the throws at the intermediate level and some on the deep and maybe not deep outs.
He could still run the RPO game though, and I think that's it's probably where they'd go line in when the backup comes in most of the time anyway. So cool.
Yep. So this is one where I sat there and I was like, okay, they got their left tackle, started the draft. Where does Kansas City need to focus? I went edge and D-line over and over and over again. I got him a wide receiver. I got him a tight ends. You start looking at the interior of the offensive line. I think they're pretty set there. And I think Darian Kennard is maybe a guy that they're going to move inside this next year. So maybe he's going to be, that extra guy. So I'm looking for another tackle. Because at this point in the 7th round, you're really looking for guys that either could be starters down the road or maybe even a starter in the right scenario or special teams guys. And to me, I think that you're looking at maybe a potential right tackle in the future.
Okay. I'll give you this. I like it. Again, like Kuntz, his teammate that you took in the 4th round, I haven't gotten any film on him yet. So we'll see if I can dig some up. Old Dominion is not exactly the top of my list, folks, but I will try to get there. I will tell you, I like his measurables. He's got good height at 6'2.25". I'm sorry, 6'6.25". And he's got decent length, 33.25 there. You always want the Chiefs in particular, like 34 plus on the arm length, because it does allow you to play into their style of pass block a little bit more. I think he's worth the gamble. He doesn't move super quick, but he's above average athlete. He's in the top 20 in the athletic matrix in this class for the offensive lineman, which is funny because he's very nearly right behind Broderick Jones, who I think is tackle 1. We'll talk about trade scenarios coming up, I'm sure. But I will say this, came in a sub-average short shuttle, and I like that because especially for an offensive lineman, particularly guards, but tackles as well, if you can be from that help position, and you see this a lot. They even put in a new drill this year at the combine where you're hitting your outside guy and then you're coming back shuffling in to take on an interior stunt, right? That's simulating that stunt, and that's exactly what the short shuttle's for. You see the tackles have to do it as well. And Saldi Vieri, if I say this correctly, had a really nice score on that. And so I think that does lend itself to playing in this system.
Yeah, so overall, this is my draft. I thought, you get your left tackle to start, you get your possible right tackle to finish, and you add a lot of depth to the defensive line and defensive and the edge class or the edge position for Kansas City. You take a couple of offensive playmakers, and you have a situation where we'll see what they do in free agency, because that obviously is going to play into what they go and look at in the draft. But I do think this is a scenario where you have to feel like they have a lot of their holes probably filled moving forward. And if they can hit, to a point where they get 3 or 4 of these guys that are contributing near as much as they did last year, I think they're going to be in great shape.
Yeah, I like the way that this came out. We'll have a debate next week. I don't know that I could have gone wide receiver, depending on who was there. We'll see what changes next week. We'll see how it comes along after free agency. Maybe we don't have to worry about edge. Maybe they have some plan. Maybe they have a tackle plan too. I don't know. We're going to get into it, because I think that you attacked the major needs first off the bat. So I like the way that it went. Let us know what you think. Do you guys like this draft? What would you change and what would you roll with? Leave the comments on the YouTube page and in the Apple podcast reviews, as well as Spotify. We would appreciate the feedback. You can hit us at Locked On Chiefs on Twitter as well. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed Mock Draft Monday. We'll be back with more info and more scenarios as free agency start to take off this week. It will change our needs and what we have to simulate for the Chiefs. So until next Mock Draft Monday, we're going to fill in the holes. We are here 5 days a week. Don't forget that. Like, sub, and hit the bell on YouTube. Thanks for spending your time. Good job, Chris. We'll talk to you next time.